consenting to sex will be inherently consenting to a pregnancy. So I don't see why we can like necessitate a responsibility factor, because if we were to apply this idea system, it would end with these ridiculous results, like defending the idea that if I was to walk outside and get stabbed, that makes me at fault for acknowledging this possibility. Or if a woman walks into a bar and gets raped, is she then at fault if she knew that in the back of her mind there's a possibility of this byproduct? And second, if a woman has the right to invoke consent when in the middle of sex and like revoke consent, then why couldn't she logically do this mid-pregnancy? Not to say that these are my only problems, but I think we would need to be able to provide these answers before we can come to anything else, or before we can even enact or provide any sort of moral framework that would ethically bind this woman to the protection of this clump of cells we are arguing over. Because if we can't provide reasoning as to why she's responsible, I would be more than willing to head to some kind of conclusion as there'd be no point continuing, because any other framework could be potentially just dwindled down to the equivalent of holding me responsible for the life of a random man in Germany that I've never met, which I think you would agree is pretty stupid.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, essentially, normally I feel like legally and morally we apply personhood to those who have life and are human.
Well, I don't see the point in talking about the legality of it. If you have like some intuitive ethical value that you apply to life, I'm fine with that. But I still think you'd need to provide why like we'd have this like kind of intrinsic value that could overcome even the sorts of consent. If that's the case, then we can like reach some ridiculous things where if that's all we have, and these like rights to bodily autonomy presuppose the person whose dependencies forcing upon another, and the mother's like right to bodily autonomy is therefore invoked and revoked, then we could like engage in so many things. Like we could say that like rape is okay and shit like that if we go down this path. Sorry, I'm starting path.
Yeah, sure. So, like I was saying, ethically and legally, but we don't have to talk about the legality of it. But it seems as though we normally apply personhood to those who are both human and have life. And normally, like when I say life, like we normally designate life to those who have a heartbeat and brain function, and
Heartbeat and brain function.
And then like human meaning like they have human DNA, they are part of the human species. Lots of people would like to take like one body part out of the human body and say, well, this thing has life and human DNA. Well, that thing doesn't have brain function and a heartbeat. So normally like we wouldn't consider that a human life in the way that we normally do.
That's fine that like you could apply like these intuitive values you hold. But,
I'm saying that's how we normally apply personhood, not that this is what I hold.
Well, that's not what we do. Is we would imply like many people. I don't think you could like provide a preponderance for this. I don't think it's a provable claim. If you do this, that's fine. But here's my problem with this, and my problem with this whole idea system. If we reach these things and argue for these kinds of things, it still doesn't get past the fact of the matter is like, why is the mother responsible for this? Why is she responsible?
Okay, I'm sorry. I just assumed like we were both giving like statements for what our positions were. Okay, so yeah, if you want to go there, then I when it comes to whether or not somebody is responsible for something based on the chances of that thing, yeah, like we do this normally, like with things like if you get into a car while you're drunk, you're more likely to get into a wreck and kill somebody. So we normally just go ahead and charge you with something based on the fact that you are recklessly endangering other people's lives. We do this all the time with all sorts of things where we say you knew the chances were greater if you did X, so therefore you are more culpable or more responsible. Now, if going outside means that I'm more likely to get raped, that doesn't mean that I'm more culpable for going outside. But yeah, if I have sex knowing that that's how babies are created, and I go have sex anyways, then yeah, like I think that that's a high chance would mean that I'm responsible.
Disassociating parallel between that and walking outside and getting stabbed. I know that that's a possibility every time that I like do that. I know there's a possibility this is the case. I know it's even probable since it could even happen millions of times a year. And if we're just like proposing that like there's a probable chance, therefore we should hold it. We could do heaps of things by this logic. Every time I move, that could cause the rain of a chaotic system, that could therefore cause a thunderstorm in another country that could kill a person. If we're just holding that dwindling factor, then we can lead to plenty of results that would end in plenty of like malfunctioning ideas. So I don't see why this isn't a defeater by any means, or like an attack so we could provide some moral framework. I think it's still like a delusional aspect.
Yeah, I don't think it's meant to be a defeater. It's just to come back to what it was that you were saying. But the um the the fact that like going outside is necessary for anybody to exist within society. I don't think that we can just say going outside means that you're more responsible. But things like drinking, things like, you know, having sex, these are extracurricular activities that are not necessary for you to do anything.
So if a woman goes to a bar, as you know, like the chances of being date raped it's a high percentage. It's a higher than what most people think. If a woman goes to a bar and she gets date raped, is she responsible for this? Is it her fault?
You're asking morally.
Yeah, morally, is it her fault?
No, it's not her fault.
What's the difference between that and engaging in sex?
Because her getting raped is her enacting, is somebody else enacting force upon her.
Oh, like a fetus.
Well, no, yes, it would be like her enacting force on a fetus. Yes.
No, like the fetus enacting force on her.
How
Even
does
she.
the,
Do you know what the idea of? Let me provide an idea system to you. If a woman entices a man to have sex, and therefore has started the initiating process, and then halfway says, "Okay, I don't want to have sex anymore," and he keeps going, that's rape. That's 100% rape. If he chooses to keep going when she says no after the fact, that is completely parallel to to pregnancy, and I'd need something that would imply a non-parallel before I can say that's not analogous. So is there anything that makes this disanalogous?
well, I mean, yeah, the fact that the man is actually conscious and has the ability to make the choices, consent to the actions that he's actually forcing upon her, whereas the fetus doesn't. She's the one who enacted the actions to where the fetus would be inside her and growing.
She enacted and like permissified the action of having sex itself. So that second part doesn't work here. Now, if we want to conjure this whole idea that like whether or not a fetus is sentient, then I could just say like by that logic, I can just wait till a fetus has a level of sentience and therefore I can stop it again. But like that's not what you value. You said you value like its brain capacity and its heartbeat. Okay, so then like it has these things. Why do I have to like wait for it to be able to consent for me and therefore say I don't want it in my body anymore?
For the same reason that somebody who has a mental disability isn't culpable for the actions that they any actions that they do, but the person who enacts things on them would still be culpable for whatever actions.
Why isn't like a person with a mental disability like be able to be held accountable? I don't see why.
You don't see why?
Yeah, why?
Because they don't have the brain function available to actually consent to the actions.
By that logic, I can just invoke the violinist. Like just because like we've invoked a level of dependency and the dependency was instated by you, that doesn't mean you should be held to that dependency throughout the whole point. That'd be the same as saying, all right, if I enact sex and enacting a relationship with the sex addict and the sex addict becomes dependent on me because I've started that relationship, that doesn't mean I can't end that relationship just because his dependency is reliant on me. That would be ridiculous. I think you'd agree I should be able to end a relationship with someone if I want to, especially in the idea of a sex addict. You'd agree with this, wouldn't you?
I mean, in some cases, like in the violinist, I don't understand the parallel between what I said and the violinist.
I said I could just enact the violence if you wanted to attack that, which basically holds
instead of arguing against what I said, you would enact the violinist.
What did you say? Repeat for me.
That,
I don't know which part you said.
That somebody who doesn't have brain function isn't able to consent to their own actions if they have some sort of mental disability.
You want me just to directly attack that? That doesn't mean that it can impose its life on another person.
Right. But if they did, we wouldn't hold them accountable in the same way we would somebody who does have brain function. And you're saying we would hold a fetus accountable the same way that we would somebody with a full functioning brain.
No, that's not what I said. I never actually said that directly. That would be a straw man of what I said, because I
Then
never
why?
actually.
What is the point in the parallel of saying
Right,
somebody can ask to hold on, hold on? I want to ask, like, what is the parallel? Because you keep skipping from one thing to another, and I can't actually get you to focus on one argument. I want to
Okay.
understand why is there a parallel from somebody saying I don't want to have sex with you anymore, so now you have to stop, to a fetus then? If you're not saying that they have brain
The
function.
parallels are is that you've imposed a level of you've imposed and initiated the idea of situation in action, and therefore you don't want to be a part of it anymore. Those are the core parallels. You can have outside means, as you say, those aren't parallel, but those are the core parallels. Now, if you had let me finish, you would have actually understood that I was about to say that, yes, the reason why I'm invoking the violinist is because it takes the moral sense that just because we can therefore protect the life doesn't mean we necessarily need to. And I'm not saying the fetus is necessarily immoral for being to impose its action. I never said this was the case. I'm saying it's not an immoral act inherently to say that she can stop this action, because I think it would be a level of self-defense. If anything, she's defending herself in the means she feels is necessary, and I don't see that to be, in this case, something wrong. So now I need you to impose to me why the responsibility factor is bound to her, like I asked you from the start.
What is the self-defense? If it's not actually threatening her in any way, then what is she defending herself from?
Her right to bodily autonomy. That's her. She's
So,
defending her. The self-defense. Defense of one's right is why defined in this instance as.
so if I actually signed a contract to say hey, actually I'm, as a violinist, I want to connect myself to you,
Why does
and what?
I don't see the point in invoking a contract that would be analogous to situational usage.
You
Because
don't.
we're not talking about in the idea where a mother signs the child. This isn't what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about at all. So it's not analogous to the situation, so it holds no usage.
Well, it seems though it does if you're having sex and understanding the ramifications or the outcomes of having sex. Yeah, I would say that.
Are you applying a social contract as the same as like a written out legal contract?
Yeah, I'm saying they're fairly similar in the moral obligation to it.
No, they aren't. One has social implicatives that can be disassociated. The other has legal implicatives that could end in the idea that you're in trouble if you do this on a legal sense.
Right, but
these two things are.
I said morally, when it comes to a social contract and a legal contract, the moral implications of both are the same.
Why?
Oh, because essentially you're kind of putting into action something that you don't actually plan to fulfill.
By that logic, anything could be there'd be a heap of things you could compare if you're using such a vague terminology. By that same logic, if I start a carpentry course and then I drop out of it, that's the same. That's not necessarily like a contract of some kind. If by that logic, if I start learning the violin and stop, that's something. Those aren't social contracts. Those aren't things. I didn't agree to some social some contract throughout society, some underwritten, implicative, or explicit contract to society or around the ideas of society when I agree to myself to learn the violin. But if I stop that, that's just as analogous. So I don't see the point in this comparison since it's overtly vague.
I mean, do you think that that's the same as, going to a carpentry class is the same as creating a human body?
When did I say that?
Well, you're using it as a comparison. Why would you use it as a comparison if you don't think they're similar?
I'm saying that by that logic, if you're using such vague terminology, these things could be applied, which is what you're doing. You're using vague terminology. I want you to be more specific, please.
Yeah, a social contract that affects people's entire livelihood. Yeah, I would say that and yeah, I would say even just morally, if you go and sign up for a class and you don't intend to actually stay there or continue paying, and they filled your seat instead of giving it to somebody else. Yes, there are always moral implications to you signing some sort of contract and not fulfilling it.
Do you think ramifications have effects on morality?
Ramifications? Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay. All right. So one holds a legal ramification and the other holds no legal ramification. So therefore,
But I'm not talking about legality.
No,
Why do you
no,
keep
no,
bringing
no,
that
no,
up? We're talking about morality.
no. You're not letting me finish. That's why you don't understand what I'm about to say. So that's why the intent is different, because how people act under a legal contract is different to how people socially act in a social contract. Just because they both have contract does not make them analogous to one another, because one holds a legal ramification which could affect someone's answers, someone's social actings, and someone's effects on the environment around them. That is the difference.
Are you saying that like just because something becomes illegal, now it's automatically immoral, regardless
When
of
did I say
like
that?
the
When
I
did I
don't
say that?
understand, why do you keep making comparisons if you don't actually think they're a comparison or a
When did I
parallel? I
say
don't
that, though?
understand. You keep doing this.
I said the legality of something or the legal ramifications of something affect how people act. I never said that it is morality is bound to the legality. I never said
Oh,
that. Those two
okay,
things
my
are
bad. I assumed you were again
no.
giving a retort to my argument, not just saying something at random. So, do you have something against my argument?
Something against your argument. What argument in particular? You've made a few.
The one about uh contract, saying that like the out something, that has a bad outcome based on the contract that you
I just don't think it's
sign.
analogous to the situations.
I'm sorry.
So that because I'm guessing you're providing like some ramification based argument. I'm guessing that's what you're providing, right? Because you're saying it in the idea a bad thing could happen if you sign and don't hold to this, correct?
Right.
Right. Okay. I don't think that's analogous to most situations. And even if you want to band it to those situations where that legal is fine, we can go from there. But I'm just going to hold you to the fact, like, of the most pregnancies that don't involve that, and I'm just going to keep pressing you on those pregnancies. So either drop this because it's not analogous or provisional to most pregnancies, or just keep going. I'm just going to press you about most pregnancies.
Oh, let's go ahead. What do you got?
Okay. Why does this matter to most pregnancies?
Creating a human life.
No, the contract part. What are we talking about?
That like having sex and knowing that it could create a human life, like
No,
what?
it's not having a contract that can have a bad outcome and therefore be held to the outcome.
Well, the creating a life isn't necessarily a bad outcome.
We can agree to social contracts and like engage in them and still like not hold to those social contracts and not necessarily be in like some course of like ethical problematics to the point where we behold to our rights to bodily autonomy being revoked. So I don't see why this would be the case.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you want me to answer right now? What do you want? Why not? Because if I engage on a social contract to say, hi, if I say to my friend right now and I say, this can be an I say, hi, I'm going to meet you at this place at 7:35 on the dot. Please be there. And if I never show up, sure, there's a social contract that I've engaged on, an explicit social contract I've engaged in that I did not uphold the end result. But you wouldn't say that you could revoke my right to bodily autonomy, the right to decide what happens with my body, just because I didn't show up to like some plans with a friend. That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
Again, I'm not understanding the parallel here. When it comes to actually creating a human life, like when we're talking about the life or death of somebody, these are not parallels.
You're invoking the social contract aspect, and I'm saying the parallels between these is that I've agreed with another party to invoke into an explicit social contract, and I've not withheld the end result of that contract.
Yeah, I never said that like any and all social contracts. I've specifically made the qualifier over and over that a social contract where it affects the life of somebody else, you definitely should be bound to that contract.
See, your problem here and the problem with your argument is it just holds to the basic intuitive means that you just value life more than I do, maybe. But like,
that's how these arguments always go, right?
No, you can invoke other things that aren't just like based perfectly on intuition. For example, I'm not trying to convince you or something. I'm just trying to explain to the crowd of the people who may share similar intuitive values to me of my understanding and reasoning as to why I believe this. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, because it would basically be the equivalent of me trying to plant a tree in sand, as it would not heed the same results as planting it in soil, because you may just have different intuitive values to me. What I'm saying basically right now is that apart from the intuitive value of life, I would need some reasoning as to why like that would just overcome, and why your moral system dictates that would just overcome the rights of the mother's bodily autonomy. Because I don't think you would invoke that a life of another person can overcome your choice of your body, unless you just hold that and you're just insane, which I don't see.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. That is what I'm saying. I don't think that you can say I'm like one person's bodily autonomy is more important than another person's bodily autonomy. And especially when I'm the person who created that body and chose to do the actions that would create this body inside of me, that now I'm no longer responsible for that in any way. And I think that that life inside of the person is going to be just as important as the other.
Okay, so you're saying because I invoked dependency, or I had initiated dependency, that therefore their rights of bodily autonomy can supersede my own. Is that what you're saying?
Not that it supersedes it, but that theirs is just as important as the
So
other.
therefore, they can choose what happens to your body.
Well, they're not choosing anything. It's you chose already.
Their rights supersede your choice.
To kill them, yes.
No, to unsubstantiate dependency.
Wouldn't that entail killing them?
If that would lead to their death, if it's possible that, okay, sure, that's fine. But like, the basis of it is more on the dependency aspect. Since, sure, in a perfect world where we could keep babies alive, that'd be fine. But if it leads to their death at the cause of your dependency and your choices, I think that's completely fine. Now, let me explain why. Because if we invoke this value system, we invoke this idea of thinking, we then reach the conclusion of, okay, if I initiate dependency with a sex addict, and therefore, like, they need me to survive, like, on a mental level, to the point where they could even kill themselves if it isn't for me staying with them, and then therefore I say I don't want this anymore and they choose to rape me, it would be almost completely analogous to these situations, because I've invoked dependency and their need for dependency overcomes my choice. That is almost equivalent with rape, with a sex addict, if you've initiated the relationship. See where the problems hold, Tom?
No, that's not.
You don't understand that?
Ending the relationship with the sex addict doesn't mean that they die.
It could. No, it definitely could.
It could, but like ending the dependency of a fetus on you almost definitely means that that fetus is going to die. Now, if you want to give me some example of where we're going to like keep the fetus somewhere else and grow it by itself, then I think like maybe this would be an okay thing. But if that's not the case, then.
But like, let's talk about the cases where it does lead in death, because do you know what mental withdrawal is? Something that can happen with ice users, something that can happen with heroin users, something that can happen with like anything that involves in taking the lungs instead of taking to the blood system, which can happen with heroin. Ice can happen with a multitude of drugs and a multitude of anything that can be installed into the lungs. Since that doesn't enter the bloodstream, there's no physical withdrawal, there's only a mental withdrawal that comes with this, can lead to suicide. The high rate of suicide involved in mental withdrawal is actually much higher than what you'd think. And this definitely happened due to a sex addict who's lost their dependency. So definitely it holds the possibility that suicide is an ending result. Therefore, it holds a possible outcome that we can reach this conclusion. And therefore, there's a good outcome for analogous. There's a potential for analogous. So therefore, in this circumstance where it does lead to suicide, do you think it is morally wrong for them to be held in this relationship to the point where they could even rape, if that's okay, because it stops them from committing suicide?
I mean, is this person incapable of making decisions on their own? The person who's likely to commit suicide, like, or
why is that important in this instance?
Well, because a fetus is not able to decide whether or not they are connecting to somebody else. So, like, again, it's someone who doesn't actually have the mental capability of joining you in some sort of contract, whereas a sex addict does.
But a sex addict has lack of control of their own choices too.
Correct. Which means you probably shouldn't enter into a relationship with them in the first place, right?
that doesn't mean it's the woman's fault if she gets raped after the fact that she wants to end the relationship, unless you're saying that.
No, of course not.
Of course not. So then what are you saying?
That she shouldn't be in a relationship with them in the first place. So
a woman probably shouldn't be having unprotected sex. That doesn't mean she can't kill the fetus.
well, again, this is not a direct action that actually kills this person by breaking up with them. Like that's not a
Taking the fetus out of the body isn't like a direct action, isn't like the directness, but like in a lot of situations, taking the fetus out will end in its death in most situations.
no, that's
connected.
incorrect.
What?
That's incorrect. They literally tear the body out limb by limb, taking it
That's
out with the
only
vacuum. That thing's dead
that's
before
only
it ever
surgical
leaves
abortion,
the.
Tom. That's only
What?
surgical abortions. Surgical abortions start from 12 weeks. A lot of abortions happen. 40% of abortions happen before 12 weeks. 40% of abortions aren't surgical, Tom. Didn't you know that? I can get you a study right now that proves that.
What is the difference to you?
A surgical abortion means that the baby's too big to be taken out normally, so it's cut up from the inside, then pulled out. That is a surgical abortion. Those two things aren't the same thing, Tom. So don't just say that they mostly have. That's all that happens. That's not how it always happens.
Wait. Hold on. Does that thing have a brain and a heartbeat?
Yes.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Before 12 weeks, it does not have a brain and a heartbeat.
No, from before 9 weeks, it doesn't. It has those things at 9 weeks. It has basic brain function from 9 weeks, and it has a basic heartbeat at 9 weeks. You're actually wrong here.
Okay. What people say is a heartbeat at 9 weeks is not a heartbeat. It's it's just
What
not.
is it? What is it?
I don't actually remember. It's like the mother's heartbeat pumping into the fetus, but I can pull this up real quick. Hold on.
Wait. So like, 1 second. Go on. Oh, you're talking about like real hearts, not synthetic representations, correct?
Right.
Okay. Okay. So then people with artificial hearts aren't living anymore?
No, an artificial heart. What is that
Isn't
exactly?
a real heart? Isn't a real heart?
Like
Isn't
something
real
that helps the heart beat, or an actual artificial heart?
People who need heart transplants have artificial hearts that take over. The longest time running has been over 500 days with an artificial heart, which is basically a machine pumping instead. Because the heart doesn't work anymore and doesn't exist. It's practically a dead organ. It's actually been taken out in a lot of cases because dead organs can cause infection, if you didn't know. So basically, from that aspect, are you saying people with artificial hearts aren't human anymore?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know much about that. I would have to look into that more.
Okay. Well, the basis of that would then be if you don't have any reason here, then that like almost destroys your whole attack on values, because if you can't answer whether or not like the lack of heart therefore means it has no like value or disassociates its value, then like this leads to some pretty bad things, Tom. Like it does.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about artificial hearts, so.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, okay. 1 second. Sorry. I just got to think from Pokemon. 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So. Anyone know how long this has been going?
I'm sorry?
Do you know how long this has been going for?
I believe about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Let me pull it up. Started at 8:18, so 40 minutes.
Uh, so I'm guessing you don't value that don't fit your requirements, correct? Lack of brain function and like the heartbeat shit, right?
Well, when I say that those things are requirements, it's like requirements to consider this a human life. Um,
Uh,
I suppose like if it has an artificial heart, then it probably is still a human life. Like normally, if somebody no longer has a heartbeat or a functioning brain, then we no longer consider them having life. Outside of that, it's like hard to define what life is or what a human life is
you do realize that creates an inconsistency in what you said, right?
with the fetus.
Just within your whole like values and like what you determine when you grant your value that grant, it creates a whole like inconsistency now.
How so?
Because you said when you were referring to hard original shit cut out.
Yeah.
Cut out. I said you said the real organ, and now you've granted it to things without the real organ. That creates an inconsistency. You've contradicted yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Again, like I said, I don't know much about the artificial heart, but I suppose if it's an artificial heart, then like it's still a heart of some sort.
It's just not the real organ, which is what you originally said, which is where the inconsistency spawned from.
I don't think I ever said it had to be
Yes, I did.
the actual organ.
I asked you verbatim. I say you're talking about the real heart, the real organ. That's why I asked you verbatim.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't considering it an artificial heart at the time. I don't think that's an inconsistency. That's just new information added.
Yeah, that would contradict your original feeling. There would be an inconsistency as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
Okay. That's weird. Oh shit. I think he's looking for a scan, guys. Um,
Are you looking for something or
no, I was waiting for you.
waiting for me to do what? You said, hold on a second.
No, I didn't.
Okay. What are you waiting on me to say?
No, I thought because you said, as I said, for something about the heartbeat of a fetus, and I've been waiting.
I said, okay, like you think that's a contradiction. I don't.
I thought you were looking for a picture or something like
No,
that.
you started flipping through pages and stuff, so I thought you were like reading something. Okay, so do you think that like bodily autonomy is always going to matter all the way through? Like, can we kill a fetus or a baby like from its inception till birth?
Mm-hmm. Oh, what were you saying? Sorry, I cut out for a second. What were you saying? Sorry.
Is bodily autonomy always above everything else? Like, are you able to take a fetus's life from like the from its inception until birth, like the entire time?
I think you're allowed to disassociate or disband the dependency from any time in the pregnancy. If that the later it goes, I guess there's more of an argument we can like, because as you know, like especially in countries like the UK, we do things to like where we can force end pregnancies early, like from like a 30-week or 25-week thing where we can still keep the fetus alive. Sure, I'm fine with that idea, but like, and only like I'm sure I'm kind of fine with that idea. I don't know like too far into that, but I just think we can disband dependency whenever in the pregnancy. If that leads to the child, if that leads to, I shouldn't say child, the clump of cells, death, I'm fine with that. I don't even know if I can say death. That's very iffy if I can say death. It's more like a semantics thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't really like these debates just because like what one person just comes in with a different level of or a different system, and the other person comes in with a different system, and they're both like, well, my system's better, and like that neither one is like arguing within the other person's system because there's not like they're not able to like hold these separate, right? Like each one of us is still going to value our own system in the end.
These debates are more internal critique, so I understand why that would be the case. They come more down to an internal critique than they do like a straight up debate. So like I can understand that, but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, sorry. Is there like Well,
That's all.
I appreciate it, man.
No, thanks for the coming down to our community for this talk. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Later.
Have a good day. That went swimmingly.
So that was a
And there were
travesty.
3. All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Noah, I want your initial opinions.
You don't want my look. If I give my initial opinions, I might bias the rest of the judges.
Wait,
audience,
did you already
whatever.
finish? James, bro, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Bro, I try to be
I was
subtle,
like-
and
wait,
this man just comes in
James.
with like.
Why did it finish? I wasn't thinking, because we're playing a game. Why did it
I
finish?
think it was just him saying they reached an impasse.
No, it wasn't
Bro,
that.
you were so whack. Why didn't you push for a concession on anything?
I did.
No, you did not. You guys sat
Yes,
there awkwardly for like 10 minutes, bro. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
I know. I thought he was looking for a skip. I swear to God, he said.
Even
No,
then, I just don't see why you didn't continue the conversation. That
no,
was just
I
fucking
argued-
bizarre, bro.
Did you hear what I even did?
What?
I made him basically concede that there was an inconsistency in his value system. I made him drop
So
it.
you made him what inconsistency?
He said. He said that he grants like moral value to like people when they are like they have brain function and a heartbeat and they're human. And I provided that humans
Dog.
exist that don't have a heartbeat and humans are still able to live. And he said, well, I guess they are human. That's an inconsistency. He's
Bro,
like, I
that
don't-
was just like, wow, I'm just so disappointed. Like,
what?
you probably won, but that was just such an ass debate, bro. Holy fuck.
It wasn't that bad.
It really was that bad.
Wait, but James, there's one part I want to ask you about.
Hold on, fuck. I need to find a place to hide this fucking.
Even when I win, I don't get what the fuck.
James, wait, there's one part of that debate I want to ask you about. It's when he was, part of his value system was, if something doesn't have the ability to consent at all, then we can't hold it, accountable for its actions. That was one of these things, right?
I said we don't need to hold it like necessarily accountable. Like
No,
in
that
the
was
mean-
his thing. That's what he said. He said
I
we
know.
would be accountable.
Yeah, I don't like in the way you're saying it doesn't necessarily need to be accountable for us to agree that the mother doesn't need
James,
to be.
what the
accountable.
fuck was that, bro?
I can't do
Like-
anything right with your fucking eyes. Like I just can't. What the fuck?
You can't. You really can't do anything right.
Anyway, no luck. Either I want your opinion now or in private sector. Either way, I want your opinion. I want to hear your thoughts.
I don't even know
Get
why you
nice
want my
way.
opinion. I'm not even a debater. I don't know what you want me to do.
I don't care. You're gonna give it.
Hey, bro, that was like, wow. If I were you, bro, I'd find another final debate because that was not it. Fucking bitch.
I can't do anything right for this man.
So, James, you fucked up having a final debate that much. You're ass and you're a little bitch. You got to do better next time. That is the summarization of Trini's argument.
James, he is on your ass on this stream, bruh.
What do you mean?
I asked him what he thought about it. He's just like, he's on your case, bro.
Oh, he sucks. That's fine.
That was not impressive at all. I just gotta say it. Like from both sides. Although, I'm just gonna say
Bro, that was so ass.
you did win the debate, but both sides were just, eh.
I can't do anything right, can I? No luck.
No, you can't. Do better.
Bro, he is on your case, James.
Bruh, don't make me watch this fucking stream. Bro, you don't want me to lose my shit. Because I will lose.
James, he is on your case. Oh my lord, bruh.
What the fuck is he saying?
He's just saying James was like, he just didn't even want to debate with him because he's just annoying from the beginning.
Ah, that's alright. He sucks.